Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. And we just had a fabulous session about unicorns and their success stories and the journey that they embark upon to create value and wealth. Now, this session is more focused on large corporates, MNCs. They're adopting the mindset of agility and operating like a startup in a very dynamic business environment. So as we start this panel, let me introduce the folks on the dais here with me. We have Sandhya Devanathan. She's the Vice President of Meta India and Head of Meta in India. And she comes with a lot of great experience, both in India as well as in APAC region and US. Mr. Lingaraju Sarkar, he's the President of Kendrill India and has a leadership experience across technology sector or a couple of decades that he's been involved. Mr. Harveer Singh, he is the Senior Vice President at Tata Digital and the Chief Business Officer over there. And Ms. Sandhya Vasudeva, she's the Director at TTK Group. Mr. Vipul Rungta, MD and CEO, HDFC Capital. So as you can see, we have a panel made up of country heads, MDs across large MNCs like Meta, Indian companies like Tata, and of course HDFC Capital. So it's a pleasure to have you all here with me on the panel, so thank you. Now as we start the discussion, let me start with you, Sandhya, that when we look at it, small businesses are the backbone of any economy. And India has about 64 million small businesses, and they contribute around 27% to the GDP. Now, being a company with a lot of platforms and products, including WhatsApp and other things, please tell me, how are you engaging with your products to help scale SMEs and drive innovation in their business?
Thank you, Jeet. Okay, I was wondering whether this is working. It's working. Before we begin, I just wanted to congratulate you on putting this together. This is incredible. The energy is palpable, and I'm looking forward to actually going and checking out all the exhibits after. So, huge congrats to the METI Startup Hub for doing this today, and I'm excited to be here with all of you. And I think before we start about what we're doing on SMBs, and you talked about that number, I think it's important to talk about where India is at this point, which is, we just are looking at us becoming, we are the 5th largest economy globally. We're talking about becoming the 3rd, and then, potentially the 2nd in the not very distant future. I think India is in the throes of huge, realization of opportunity and a technological revolution, and that's being powered by what we're seeing on digital inclusion and how we're seeing people come online. And I feel at Meta, we're in this really fortunate position to have a small role to play in this as well, given that we connect hundreds of millions of Indians on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on Instagram. And I think that sort of reflects even on the partnership that we have with you, Jeet, on the METI front, where we've partnered around 2 very important things that we think will underpin a lot of this realization of potential that we see in this country: the AI and the metaverse. So I think these will have big implications for small businesses as well, and we can talk about that later, in the session today. But we're very excited that we've done some, great work with METI around this. Coming to small businesses itself, when we think about the 63 million businesses, when we think about the opportunity that they have to actually add to the GDP of the country. So if you look at 2030, right now they contribute to around 30%. They're expected to contribute to around 40% of all GDP in the not too distant future. So we think about what their biggest needs are. One, when they want to look at digital transformation, they need platforms of scale, and we're one of them. So we're constantly thinking about how can we provide products, how can we make onboarding easier, how can we become their website, if you will. Like for many, many small businesses, WhatsApp is the first storefront that they have. So we're constantly thinking about how we can innovate on that front and what we can build there. The second thing that we think about is when we went and actually talked to small businesses, they had 2 big needs. One was they didn't know how to get digital skills, right? And they knew it was important. And 2, they didn't have access to capital, especially women. So two of the things that we've done where we've doubled down and focused on is skilling, where we've launched a lot of initiatives, and I can talk later on in the panel about the specific initiatives we've launched around education and skilling of digital tools. We just announced a partnership with Kate, where we're training 10 million traders across the country. The second thing we've done is we've actually launched a program with Indifi and Flexi Loans, two fintechs, where we're enabling access to small businesses to have loans without collateral. We think it's really important that they have that access. And you know, we've been quite heartened by the response that we've seen to that program as well. So that's how we think about it. Products, connecting people on our platform, upskilling, and you know, access to capital.
No, I think this is very apt, and everyone knows Meta and a lot of products that Meta has globally. So for our international friends here, so they're fully aware of it. I definitely want to come back to you later around AI and what we are working on. But before that, let me ask you, Harveer, House of Tatas is a legacy brand. Everyone knows, at least in India and even abroad. But tell us a little bit more about Tata Digital, because that's a transformation in a very big business. So what are you doing in Tata Digital, and how are you engaging with emerging technologies and creating value for your businesses?
Thanks, Jeet. Thanks for that. So just to set the context, so Tata Digital is the digital arm of Tata Group. And we came into existence about 3-4 years ago. And how most of us know Tata Digital is through our flagship super app, which is Tata Neu, right? What we are doing there is when we were conceptualizing this whole thing, we saw that each one of our direct-to-consumer brands, and they are very, very strong brands. Just to name a few, Titan is there, Chroma, Click, so on and so forth. There are about 30-odd brands which are there in front of consumers. And we believe that there was a requirement, if you look from a customer-in perspective, to be able to showcase all the Tata offerings to the customers at one place, so that the customer does not have to go and engage with each of the brands separately, have their separate preferences. And in doing so, we are able to provide for the maximum digital needs of a customer on a day in, day out basis. And I would say the privilege we enjoy, in addition to what you mentioned, Jeet, is the customer trust, but also that we are not looking at this whole setup from a digital-only perspective. We have stores, and these are all iconic stores that I'm sure many of you have seen and visited. So we are looking at this whole setup in a very omni-channel manner, where we want to be able to serve a customer, Jeet as a customer, or Sandhya as a customer, or any of you in the audience as a customer, in a very, very holistic manner, no matter which touch point you are accessing us from. So that's been the driving thought and the vision behind setting up Tata Digital, and then presenting Tata Neu as what we understand as India's first super app.
No, thank you so much. And you know, we definitely want to know more about Neu app, which is a flagship product, and you know, kind of value that it's creating. But before I get back to you, let me ask Lingaraju. You know, not many people are fully aware of what Kyndryl does, but it's a very agile company, whether, you know, we call it in the infrastructure services space. So tell me about the innovation that you guys are driving and the digital technologies that you're using and how that's empowering your customers.
Thank you, Jitendra, and it's really a pleasure to be here and amidst this very vibrant environment of the DIA. Kyndryl is a globally a $17 billion company. It's a spin-off from IBM about 2 years ago as an independent company. And we primarily started off as managed infrastructure services, but that's what we started off with. As we move ahead, we are more into a full stack technology, IT, digital services company, which is helping clients manage their digital infrastructure, but more importantly, running their mission critical environments. So whether it is ensuring people talk to each other through telephone systems or flying systems on airlines or airports or automotive systems, making all of them work for the economy is what we do. I think the core change for us has been as we move from a product-centric company to a services company was being about customer centricity. So we rebuilt our entire operating model with customer at the center and empowering employees at the edge. So to do that was a lot of culture transformation of the organization so that we could become a lot more agile. Second is being more open to outside-in ideas. So partnering with a whole lot of ecosystem players, partnering with startups, partnering with our customers in co-creation of ideas into suggestions that we could put together. And third is basically looking at a culture of flat, fast, and focused so that we could make mistakes sooner. We didn't have to worry about processes to correct it, but take the fastest way to get it done. If it works, fine. If it doesn't work, it's okay, move on. Kind of an approach we took across. And lastly, amidst all of this was the fact that being in India, where our biggest talent base is located, the opportunity to look at India as a market which would give us scale, complexity, as well as demand a degree of frugalness of solution is how we approach things across. And through this, we were able to take the innovative ideas that came out from here, make it work for India, and then take it to the rest of the globe. So a combination of all of this in a short span of time was how we looked at building things in a very agile manner and taking it across. So that's been our journey so far.
No, I think this is going the flow that we want, that engaging the ecosystem, engaging with the startups, engaging with the other partners to create value together. But before we move on to the more defined topic of how we are doing the engagement, let me ask Sandhya that we are moving to the world of AI, but again, AI and other things depend on data and data analytics. And what's your thoughts and views on value that is created through data, insights that are being built? Because we are talking about large language models and other things. So can you share your views on that?
So if I get it correctly, you're asking my opinion about large language models and how AI can benefit in the larger context. I won't wear my corporate hat at all. When I look at the larger ecosystem, most of the AI models that are being built is with the Western data. India's got a very rich Indic thought process, which will lead to different perspectives. So if we need to build that. Right now, the economic model has not been very effectively built. They are getting built, but it's not fully there. So what that implies for us is 80% of the people who don't understand English, in a way, are excluded from this transformation that's happening. You need to be able to build for everyone in Karnataka to be able to use that, or in UP to be able to use the Hindi language itself. Now, what is the value there? There are 2 or 3 things. If you're looking at the creator economy, which is huge in India, they will need to access that kind of thought process. And the kind of data which is there, including, let's say, designs and effective music information or the creative information, that data is not yet there in the AI field. So the opportunity for Indian players to build this out and drive that ecosystem, because I was looking at, last week I was at the Digital Creative Industry Culture Symposium run by the Indira Gandhi Institute. And what is very evident is we need to bring the different stakeholders together, and for that, technology is possibly the only way to drive that. And there's a huge opportunity sitting out there.
No, I think that's really a niche area where not much attention has been given, right? And it's amazing because India is such a heterogeneous country in terms of language, culture, demography, topography, geography, and still as a union with all the diversity, India is scaling at a very rapid pace, but still so many data, much data that is created is only in English or Hindi.
I could just add, if I could, I think it just...
Hello? No.
Sorry. If I could just add, if you're looking at something like the quantum sciences, there is and you drive that thinking through the philosophy side of it. I'm not I'm not going down the woo-woo track. But if you're looking at that, the ability for an average Indian to be able to comprehend that is quite significant. We will need it in local language to drive that change. And if you're looking at quantum as the future, we will need a huge amount of talent going into the scientific space, which leverages the Indian capability of having those kind of thinking capability, which is where these kind of AI spaces will become essential for us.
No, absolutely. And I'll put a plug in for one of the initiatives that the government has undertaken. It's called National Language Translation Mission, which our Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India is driving, where our Honorable Prime Minister has given a call to the citizens to donate language. It's called Bhasha Dan. Donate language, because once the local language is on the net in the digital world, then the models can be created. So that's the visionary leadership that we have in our Prime Minister, that he's not asking people to donate money and do things. He's saying, give your language, share your views in your own language, so we can build a inclusive ecosystem and not just be relying on one or two languages to drive the global innovation. But anyway, to get back to the point, Vipul, I want to hear from you with regards to finance industry, private equity, wealth management. How is digital innovations allowing for you to increase the alpha or the return and create more value while reducing the risk?
So first of all, I am pretty much of a misfit in a pretty digitalized and digitized AI-driven panel. I run a private equity business for the HDFC Group. We do very boring work. Nothing very AI about it. Focus is on doing supply side. But I'll come to the alpha part on returns later. I think it's a perception that bankers are only looking for returns. But the bottom line is, fundamentally, I think technology can solve everything. But it cannot, or at least as of now, it has not found a solution for housing. And that's what I'm actually focusing on, because I can probably pop a pill instead of having food. I can maybe travel around the world sitting in my drawing room. I can digitally meet people. I can do everything, but I still need a space which I can call my own, which kind of saves me from what is the climate change that is happening. And affordable and mid-income housing is the single biggest problem that is common between the developed and the developing economy. If there is something that COVID has kind of equalized between the developed and the non-developed countries, it is actually on the housing front, because the homelessness in the Western world is at an all-time high. The entire contrast in, say, San Francisco, where you have a $5 million home and the highest ever level of homelessness on the streets. Same thing is applicable in UK, parts of Europe, Singapore, Japan, and obviously in the developing countries like us. Having said that, the primary reason of this is supply chain. It's an absolutely broken supply chain, and what we are trying to do is actually put a technology layer in bringing that supply chain together. Just to give you perspective, Sandhya talked about MSMEs. I don't know the number. I think there are some 80 million or 75 million MSMEs in India. About 25% of them, 1 out of 4, have a real estate client, because 152 industries go in making one home. It starts from steel, cement, the entire electricals, wood, glass, blah, blah, blah. And generally, when you compare economies as an economist, you will always say, I'll look at probably GDP per capita or GDP growth. And the second parameter that you would generally look at is housing starts. And that is because it has a very, very fundamental ecosystem attached to it. The problem, specifically in the Indian context, is that the entire supply chain, which is the 75 million MSMEs, which basically do the work, are completely disjointed. The products are disjointed, the services are disjointed, and what we are focusing on is actually integrating the entire ecosystem. So if I am, say, if I am a small developer in outskirts of Cochin, and I'm somewhere in the interiors of Banaras, and I am doing a small development work, how do I get supply side economics same as the topmost developer, say in Bombay or Delhi? And the only solution for that we felt is the integration. So what we have done is we have kind of broken the entire supply chain into 14 parts and invested in startups and invested in people who are digitizing those micro processes and getting them into the mainframe. So if I'm a small developer or I'm a big developer of Bangalore, my supply side ecosystem is pretty much similar. That's fundamentally the objective of what I do, because we are a pretty big ecosystem, and I thought I should just clarify what part I'm working on. To talk about Alpha, let me tell you, on the private equity side, in the mutual fund business, I'm sure everybody, so we invest in mutual funds. The mutual fund industry today is about $600 billion in India. And the alternate asset industry, which is what we call anything that is not equity and direct debt, has grown from $2 billion to $100 billion in last 10 years. Today, alternate assets is the name of the game from an investment perspective for most of the individuals, most of the corporates who are searching for alpha as far as their returns are concerned. Real estate becomes a very big part of it. Alternate assets like rental housing, REITs, so on and so forth, they all come into the picture. But the good thing is that, and it's pretty much across the world, about 72% of global wealth, even today, is in real estate. And because the fundamental assumption is that if I buy, it will only increase over a period of time. Any banker will say that the compounding effect is probably lower, but that's the way it works. And I think it's a very, very exciting time to integrate the supply side ecosystem to create the alpha, if that is what you were asking.
No, I think this is, you mentioned at your start that AI and digital is not the core in your field or in your expertise, but that's not actually what you ended up with, right, at the end. Because if you look at it, even to do the supply side matching and balancing, because that's your cost optimization and supply chain integrity management, that's digital technologies are allowing you to do that more effectively. And of course, the data insights that are being generated is creating that alpha, because all the high frequency trading, all the alternate asset class, now AI definitely will enter in financial management industry, because with generative AI, with predictive analytics, where we are moving is in a very different direction. So Sandhya, let me get back to you on that. Now Meta, of course, is known for taking big bets. Meta is known for taking big and bold bets on new technologies, be it metaverse, and now with Llama 2 in the AI field that you're working. And recently, Meta signed a partnership with the India AI mission at the ministry. So tell me, in your view, where do you see AI heading, and what is the role it is going to play in the future for both the startups as well as the large industries?
Thanks, Jeet. And you mentioned about the MOU that we recently signed with India AI. That's one of the things that we think will supercharge the developer ecosystem as well. So we're looking forward to working on that with you and your teams. So talking about Meta in India and what we're thinking about in terms of AI, I talked about the big opportunity for digital transformation and the technological advancement that's happening in India and that will exist, right? And what we think will be an important part of powering that will be AI and metaverse. Those are also big bets that we've made as a company. So for a long time now, for a very long time before Gen AI became a buzzword, we've used AI to power, our platforms, to help us moderate content on our platforms, to recommend things to people. So AI has been quite central in how we've approached, our work at Meta. So I think what we've done over a period of time, though, is that the minister talked this morning about open sourcing technology. I think what we've also done over a period of time is we've opened up almost 1,000 models, and data sets to researchers over a period of time, because we believe that open innovation, open sourcing a lot of what we know can actually help turbocharge and supercharge, innovation in the AI space. With that in mind, we've also launched Llama 2 now, both. We first opened it up, and then we also now have a limited use commercial model. We partnered with Microsoft on that. What we've seen so far is in India, there's a ton of interest in actually working with us on Llama 2. There's loads of academic institutions that we would like to partner with. There is a partner, work that we're doing with IIT Madras at this point, where they're looking at text-to-speech, and they're using our No Language Left Behind model to actually make that happen. There's another fintech called UB that is looking at, recommendations in multiple languages using, our open source large language model as well. So there are many examples, but I think what I am buoyed by is in partnership with India AI, I think we can actually do more of these, and India has will have the largest developer base next year, and we should be in prime position to get the benefits of AI, and we want to be able to help be a partner in that journey for India. So that's how we think about AI and our play here in India.
No, absolutely. And just as a follow-up on that, because it's a startup crowd here, and Meta has been actively engaging with the ministry in supporting startups as well. So what is your engagement with startups overall, and how do you see Meta contributing to their growth?
Okay. Engagement with startups is, thanks to the work that we've done with you, has been pretty strong. So on XROS, we have, an incubator that we've done with Meti. The way I think about how we engage with startups is there are a lot of us in the room today, many of us representing companies. I think each one of us can play a role in helping partner with, other firms that share the same philosophy, or with public-private partnerships where we can support the developer ecosystem and the startup ecosystem. So there's a variety of ways in which we support startups. First, I talked about what we do in terms of credit enablement, because we felt like that was something that we could play a role in, and we've done partnerships there. The second is we invest a lot in skilling. So be it, very small businesses, or be it work that we do with VCs, which are, interventions that we do with startups. Because many times, if you are a consumer-facing startup, you need platforms to help you scale, and that's expensive to learn and time-consuming. So that's an area where we take our responsibility. We engage, and we do a fair amount of skilling in that space. The third thing, and is the work that we've done with the XROS fund with Meti, where we've had 40 startups that were incubated. And what was really awesome was that none of these came only from the metros. We saw almost 20% come from women-owned, women-founded startups, and I think it was another 30% or something that came from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And this is something I've realized 17 years after coming back now. I'm coming back to India. The story of India now is not, the 4 metros. It is all of Bharat, and, how can we play a consequential role in helping unlock that in startups, not just from Delhi or Gurgaon or, Bangalore. We are in Bangalore, startup capital, I get it. But, how can we enable an environment where everyone feels empowered to launch their startups is something that we think about. If we have the time later, I would love to talk about business messaging, because I do think that's one way in which we're seeing small startups start their first presence, but I'll let the other panelists speak as well.
Just as a last point on that, Meta and MSH Mighty Startup Hub launched this program to support XR-based startups in India. Meta gave significant amount of funding and supported more than 40-50 startups from all parts of India. And whenever you guys have time, do visit the stall. It's the Meta MSH XR stall, pavilion in the exhibition area, where you will see some amazing startups with amazing technologies that Meta has been mentoring over the last 5-6 months now. So whenever you get a chance, do visit their pavilion. Now, Harvey, same question to you. Where do you see AI? Because that's the talk of the town. And how are you looking at ensuring that positive aspects of AI give the value, but we are not, the privacy, the trust issues, the legal aspect. How do you address those while looking at AI in your business?
Sure. So let me first talk about how does AI, at least what we perceive, how it will start benefiting the consumers in the next, say, 6 to 12 months. I'll touch upon two aspects and then we can delve deeper into questions at a later part. See, first of all, what I believe is that AI would help us make the commerce accessible. So if you look at the Indian consumer market, right, we talk about number of smartphones, say 700, 800 million in the country today. There are a number of internet connections, which is slightly lesser than that. And then we talk about people who are online or doing online sort of transactions, which is a large part due to things like UPI or rail ticket booking and so on. So that's roughly between 300, 400 million. But if you really look at the number of customers who are actually doing purchasing online, that would somewhere be in the range of 100, 120 million, maybe 150 if you stretch it. When I say accessibility, what I mean is that AI or generative AI in particular has the potential to make all of this accessible to the customers who have an experience of doing a transaction online but have not bought anything online so far because of some hesitation or the other. Or it may be simply because the content that we are producing, the image that we are producing or the product description that we are producing or something that we are doing is primarily in English or maybe in some of the other vernacular languages. And I wanted to build on the point that you made earlier. There is immense knowledge sitting with the people in terms of the vernacular languages that they are contributing to this, the language repository that you mentioned. And Sandhya, you mentioned about the work that you're doing on the generative AI side, the language models. I think this can actually make a big impact and make commerce accessible to people at a very, very large scale. Anybody who has a smartphone or has done a transaction in the past should be able to make a purchase online. So that is what I mean by accessibility. And I think a corollary to the accessibility would be in terms of credit. As our data evolves, as the transaction history evolves, we will be able to bring even more and more people into the fold of commerce who would not have been able to make a purchase because they did not have ready access to credit, right? So this is one. I think the other large aspect from a commerce standpoint is on personalization. See, personalization is a utopia that all the commerce people, including me, chase. Have we made progress? Definitely, yes. But have we made the progress of saying that I paint a selection of items which are unique to you, Jeet, versus what are different from you, Sandhya, or what are different from me? I think generative AI has the potential to get us to that stage, right? If we use these models well enough, I can actually probably just paint a page which says this is the summary of your day and these are the things that you are likely to need in the next 1 week. Why don't you go ahead and order them together? And all of this can be done in a language which the person is most familiar with. So these are from a commerce perspective. Now coming back to the question around trust and data that you asked for. See, we as a group, we have always been very, very focused on ensuring that whatever we do is worthy of the trust that the people have in us, but more importantly, also it allies with the law of the land. Now, this DPDP bill just got signed into being a law, and I think that is a very, very seminal milestone for making sure that the data is used in ways that the customer actually consents to And to me, this will actually open up a lot more customer base because customers traditionally have not been comfortable using online aspects because they believe their data may be leaked, their information may be misused. And once we implement this DPDP properly, I think that will just lower the hesitations that people have to adopting e-commerce.
I think when we talk about personalization, and you referenced the digital data protection bill that just came out and its implementation, what's your views on reducing the digital divide that exists across? Because most of the people still don't have access to digital. And digital not only allows for commerce, but allows for empowerment and engagement. So what is Tata Digital's view on reaching the masses and reducing the digital divide?
See, I would say that India has, over the last 10 years or so, made a lot of progress in reducing the digital divide. And one of the key drivers for all of this is the digital identity, which the minister referred to in his remarks in the morning. Being able to have a uniquely digitally verifiable sense of identity, which is Aadhaar for most of us, I think has unlocked a lot of benefits. And we believe as a group, and I would say as a country, that using Aadhaar, there is a lot of credit that has been unlocked, there is a lot of access to various goods and services that has been unlocked. And we want to leverage this in a large way and make sure that a lot more people have access to credit and have, in turn, access to commerce, as well as be able to provide a more holistic set of financial services to people who are not as well served today, right? So buying things is one thing, but being able to make sure that your family is safe and secure, being able to provide for your family, being able to have that peace of mind is something that we are working towards, and you'll see a lot more coming out from us in the months to come.
Thank you for those views. I want to keep it very broad, given that all of you are industry leaders and our audience wants to be where you are today and what all you have accomplished, because these are startups today. So let me ask you, because your company, you guys say that you're a startup with 100 years legacy. So how do you keep that agility mindset even in a large corporate? And how do you keep innovating within a constrained environment? And what can these startups learn from in terms of not getting too blinded by their own focus?
I think, Jeet, the question which you asked is very pertinent to the current environment of the world that we all live in. Clearly, the whole world economic order, business orders is all being turned upside down. Traditional rules and traditional ways of working are all being questioned, which is sort of the perfect environment for a startup to thrive and disrupt. Who would have thought that competitors would work together? I mean, if you look at Toyota and Maruti working together for a common product category, Samsung and Apple, Samsung being Apple's largest supplier. So with all those things going across, when you look at from the source of economic activity, which is consumer consumption, or whether it is corporate enterprises that serve that, you find that, look, there's a need to relook at how things are being done. So with that as a frame, right, the clients that we serve with are constantly looking for newer ways of working, are looking for innovation, which now is no longer going to be within, but are looking for outside and innovation to come in. So that's where we are able to work with closely with startups and take them into our client environments and say, okay, look, here's what is the problem. And the way the newer generation, the startups look at the same problem, have a different solution in mind, is one way of bringing that forward. And we're seeing that, how we're able to tap talent to that. The second is the whole world of the thin line of consumerization of IT versus corporate IT, right? We serve corporate IT in a way. And COVID has taught us a very, has sort of taught us a way of looking at consumer IT, because today your home broadband is much faster and better with 5G network. Your ability to use your phone and order, use technology to order food or order a ride or whatever is far more thing. So the experience of consumer IT, when the same talent walks into the corporate office, the expectation is that it's going to be better. And corporate systems are still very clunky. right? So, but that has set the bar higher. So now the whole focus of corporate IT is to take up more focus on user level experience versus service level experiences. So given that across, then corporate IT is reinventing itself, saying that how do I make my IT a lot more consumer focused rather than I think across. And that's where I think the world of startup who's so focused on consumer is that experience is becoming a lot more valuable to corporate. And that's where using forums like hackathons where you bring in startups into the corporate environment to look at the same problem differently and come out with a different solution is where we see startups playing a very active role, and we see that adding a lot more across. And along with that is, I think, India's unique position of the demographic dividend, where a significant part of our talent pool is in a very advantageous age group who can think differently, who can challenge things differently, and tapping that into the workforce is a great opportunity for us as we look at it, Jeet. And I think the time is really perfect right now. Right ingredients are there, the right market opportunity is there, and tapping that to bring in to make the big impact is how I see this.
No, I think this is why we have this summit under India's G20 presidency, to showcase, celebrate, and engage with the startups, because we all have to work together across nation-state boundaries and across our competitive landscape. But most importantly, what drives us is at the government level, is what our Honorable Prime Minister, when he set up Digital India, he said the founding principles are that digital technologies should be accessible, affordable, and available to everyone for ease of living and ease of doing business. And those foundational principles in the last decade itself have really leapfrogged India into a different space. And as our Honorable Minister was mentioning earlier today, this is a decade of technology. And we can't even realize what is coming down the road. And that's where, Sandeep, I want to ask you, you have been in leadership role as a former managing director at Deutsche Bank and at Thomson Reuters. You have a wealth of knowledge and information and understanding. From your perspective, where is the digital revolution going next? And how do you see it, especially with data analytics, with the AI? And where can these startups find more opportunities? I know it's a very tough question, but
How long do you have? No,
Take your
but I
time.
think on a practical note, the opportunities are immense. And I'll just talk about a few of them which I'm passionate about. If you look at the area of AI, India's got one of the largest workforces working on AI. But look at the IP that's getting created or registered with the Indian Intellectual Property Office. Not enough. We have one of the largest fintech industries. What are the number of IPs getting created or registered? Actually, we have IPs getting created, but they're not registered because people feel it'll expose them more. So it's an interesting dilemma. I sit on both sides. I like the open source because that's helped us grow quite a lot, but yet there is a place for IP. So in that context, any space where we can create IP, including the GI tagging of what we have as indigenous knowledge, and then unlocking the commercial opportunity using the ONDC platform and the various other instruments for embedded finance will take us really far. So I think don't underestimate the unlocking of rural India's commercial opportunity that'll come through not just ONDC, but also through the IP side of it. The third one is in the sustainability and ESG space. There is a small university in Bangalore which is looking at something called interspecies money. Now, what does that mean? Each species has a certain footprint, and if you have to conserve it, you have to spend a certain amount. Where will you get the money from? And it's huge amounts when you think about incrementally looking at it. So if you're looking at something like, and this is an idea that came from a gentleman called Jonathan Lagrand, and you're looking at a climate stack. We have engaged with the government. We are looking at, can you create, if you were to look at conserving just the elephant. What does it take in specific actionable elements and the money associated with it? Therefore, it also creates economy associated with that. So I've just given 3 ideas on what is possible. They are not the traditional digital spaces, but they're all spaces which the government has actually opened up for us. The biodiversity element goes into that interspecies money. You spoke about language. I mean, every day we lose a language, and the number of startups involved in that is huge. So I think potential is whatever you have an idea around, there is an opportunity to link into the infrastructure that's available, whether it's in a Meta or a Tata or the government infrastructure. I think I love this time. So much opportunity.
No, absolutely. India has a lot of challenges. That's why there's a lot of opportunities. From health tech to agri-tech to defense tech, infra tech, fintech, prop tech, you name it. Because where there's inefficiency, there's an opportunity to create something new. So let me ask you, Vipul, within the prop tech space, or let's say capital as well in real estate market, a couple of things that we have seen. One is, of course, blockchain coming big in terms of the land record digitization and maintaining integrity of the property ownership rights. Second is fractional ownership of assets. Now, do you guys look at innovation as where is the next opportunity that's going to come in, where startups or fintech or the banks or the private equity players, how are they looking at it?
Okay, from a opportunity perspective, I'll come to blockchain and fraction ownership and something later, but I think the biggest opportunity is in disintermediation. Today, if I can take an example on the panel, if I'm a software service provider and I do, say, WhatsApp bots for corporates as a mean of advertising, my access to customers, which is what I actually want as a startup, I basically need what? I need customers and I need payment on time so that I get my payments. The price of delivery of, first of all, the customer acquisition cost, the CAC as we call it, is so ridiculously high that a lot of startups trip on that. What is required is, and secondly, the cost at which it provides to a grade A customer, and by the time it goes to, say, the number 20,000, the difference can be as much as 50%, which is basically the chain eating up the margin which should have ideally gone to the manufacturer or the service provider in this case. So I think the biggest opportunity from anybody in the PropTech space is disintermediation, because as I mentioned, the supply chain both on product and service is absolutely broken. That's one. Having said that, a lot of capital has got not in blockchain or for that matter fraction, but has come in the sales, which is basically the B2C component of real estate, which is how I discover as an individual my entire process of maybe buying a house, discovering a house, doing the entire thing attached to that. Almost $5 billion have got attracted in that. To give you perspective, though it's probably not the best example, but in China, the thing is almost 50x in terms of the amount of capital that is going into only into that industry. There is a lot which needs to be done. It needs to be much more user-friendly. It needs to be something which gives me definitive value as a customer, and that is why new solutions are coming, something which gives me a single entire ecosystem on one place. So that's an opportunity number 2. On blockchain, I think the bigger part of blockchain is in the fintech part, less on the PropTech. On the PropTech, it would be more on the title part, but I don't know if you're aware, but the government currently has done phenomenal amount of work in digitizing title of land. Today, in about 80% of the states, I think I have the number right, 80% of the states in India, the land title records are digitized, which means that I can actually have a digital printout of the entire chain. which is what essentially what a blockchain does. So there is obviously a lot of application of blockchain. I don't know to what extent a new startup can actually give services which in that space, but it is definitely, the technology is being applied. Fractional ownership, very big. Still a lot of legal issues to be resolved. There are a lot of issues related to title. There may be title in terms of if you have 100 people owning a piece of land or a particular house, how will you actually have in case of there's any dispute and so on and so forth. But it is already, there are, I think, about 30 odd startups which are doing this for commercial real estate, because everybody loves the concept of yield. So can I buy 1 square foot or can I buy 100 square feet and have some yield attached to it? So that is happening. I think even bigger than this, these two would be project management related stuff. If you have to build so much, whether it's on the infra side, manufacturing side, real estate side, you need the service layer. And it is the service layer that is broken. The contracting part is completely broken, and there are some very smart digital solutions that are coming on project management. And I think it's a huge opportunity. In fact, I was just going through, you have everything, agri-tech, this thing, health tech, secure tech, fintech, ed tech. Maybe you should have something called construction tech there.
The reason we have these 6 sectors, because all these 6 affect the humanity in very important ways. Food security in agri-tech, access to health for the most marginalized, most geographically disconnected people through telemedicine, talk about secure digital infra, which is our cyber security. But going back to the larger point, and this will be our closing remarks as we come closer to the end of the session. Yeah, India today has the cheapest data. We have smartphones that cost less than 100 US dollars. And we have the most connectivity with all the towers being put up. And we have 140 billion people, right? Or sorry, 140 crore people here. Now we are talking about 70% of the population being 35 years or young in age. Now that's the mix that we are working with, and today we are only a $3.5 trillion economy, whereas US is 22 trillion, China is 19 trillion, but we are climbing fast. Now, what does Meta see in India for growth, and what's your future plans here, and how does it dovetail with the emerging tech and metaverse? Where metaverse is another topic that we want to touch base on, because a lot of people are shifting to that as well now.
Thanks, Jeet. For us at Meta, India is really, really a special country. It's one of our largest markets globally, largest in terms of users that we see. So a lot of times we build for India and then we scale to the world. So it's exciting to be back here and see that in action. Since the start of the year, I took over on Jan 1st. We've had almost like 7 or 8 product teams come and spend weeks on end trying to understand the Indian market. And you talked about this, Jeet. The shift is very real, right? You're seeing a very young, dynamic population. You're seeing, big leaps in terms of technology access. What UPI has done for the country has just been phenomenal. So I think all of those are amazing tailwinds, and it gives us like a really fertile ground to innovate and build for the world. So let me give you some examples. We're talking about youth. One of the things I realized when I came here was the first thing I had to do was make a reel, because that's what many, many Indians do. So I think, jokes apart, one of the things that we did was we launched the Reels tab first in India and then took it globally. So we learned from India, launched it here, and then innovated and took this product to the rest of the world. Similarly, some of the things that we're doing on business messaging, and I'll come to the metaverse in a minute because I feel we have the same opportunity there. But on business messaging as well, if you see what we did with JioMart last year, which was for many people in India, their first port of access is a messaging app like WhatsApp. So you're coming onto the internet for the first time. You're not downloading a sophisticated Netflix app or Prime Video and watching movies immediately. You will over a period of time, but many of them use it to stay in touch and communicate, and that's where WhatsApp comes in. So we thought we had, a great opportunity to figure out how we can enable businesses and startups of all sizes to build on WhatsApp. So we trialed that with JioMart, and since then, we've seen so many examples of people coming and innovating on our platform. You can buy Bangalore metro tickets where you're in Bangalore using a WhatsApp experience. You can order your Uber. If you're HDFC, we partnered with farmers can actually buy insurance in villages using WhatsApp, which is pretty amazing. So it's not us, it's all the companies and the startups that are innovating on the platform. So we're taking some of these use cases and actually scaling them across the world because it enables digital inclusion globally and not just for India. So Meta views India as a really fertile testing ground for a lot of the things that we want to build at scale globally. We test here, and it's a very special market for us. Coming to Metaverse, I think the opportunity really is, if we have the world's largest base of developers, can we use this, amazing intellectual capital to build content for the metaverse? Some of the examples you'll see in the booths, if you have the time, is, people actually building for healthcare use cases, training that's happening on how to actually, work in a plant using virtual reality headsets. And this is again where we think of India, where we can actually work with the work we've done with you, Jeet, on the METI XR Startup Fund, but also some of the other work that we're doing in developing quality content. I think the one thing we need to do is make sure we continue to provide the support, so we build really world-class, cutting-edge content, because virtual reality, XR, I know it seems very far away, but it's a bet that we're making. We know it will be very far away. It's probably a decade away, but we think this is going to be the next embodiment of the internet, and we're pretty all in on that. So you'll hear more.
No, I think there definitely is a big opportunity in metaverse or in the virtual world now, because IoT changed the relationship between man and machine on a factory floor. It's completely automation. Now with AI, we are outsourcing all our cognitive function from basically not remembering phone numbers to even the direction to your own home. You just put a Google map now, right? Or any other map for that matter. And virtual reality is an equally important part because people are spending more time now virtually, connected to their devices. And Metaverse, I think, provides an opportunity where a lot of these experiences can be done on a cloud space itself. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. But Harvey, as closing remarks from you, back in the day, Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook as an app in a college dorm, right? That's where it started from, an app. Now it has become Meta, right? Tell me about New App, your flagship product, and how can startups benefit from it, and what do you see the future of that?
Right. So, it's my firm belief that when you are starting up, right, anything new, whether it's in a large corporate setting or even as two people in a garage, it's probably a fallacy to think that you can build everything yourself. I am a strong believer in the power of partnerships. In fact, while we were building out Tata Neu and the underlying platforms, there are a number of platforms where we went and found the best of the breed partners, and we partnered with them, and those partners are underlying large core parts of our functionality even today. So if there are startups here on AI side and you have a good solution either on generative side or whichever side, you have my name up there somewhere, please feel free to reach out directly. We are very eager to see what is the innovation which is happening out in the market, solving real use cases, and we would be very happy to engage in a dialogue and partner. So that's, I would say, the easiest way for the ecosystem to reach out to us and partner.
Thank you so much. What do you think in terms of where can startups partner with you and your company, and what value can they drive out of it?
I think, as I said, right, given the chain that's out there, we know that we don't have all the answers as a company, as well as the all the problems that exist out there need to be solved. So I think we've identified a few key areas in which we believe that the opportunities will come up in enterprise. Cybersecurity is one area. The other area is around user or employee experience. The third area is around digital transformation, migration services across, and fourth one is around app modernization. These are technology areas. So any areas related to this where startups have better ways of doing it or newer ways of working across, we are more than keen to partner with them. We also work with a lot of large enterprises across the globe. They could be in manufacturing, automotive, telecom, banking. So any things that help them in their business processes or helps them in making their business better and faster, I think those are opportunities for us to work with them and take them through. So almost, it's an open field, very specific areas, and anyone who's got capabilities in those areas to make things better, open to partnerships in those.
No, I think that's a really incredible opportunity where corporates can engage with startups on a business matters, because embedding a startup solution in a larger project to enhance value for the end user, I think that's a win-win for everyone at that point. Now, Sandhya, to you, you are very actively involved with TIE as well, and you're mentoring as well. So what advice do you have for international startups and other participants who are here on opportunities, on collaboration, or general advice that you have for them to succeed?
I focus on the fintech, but I'm also very passionate about most of the other areas. So I'm greedy in that sense. So if people are looking for partnerships, there are amazing startups. They can reach out to any one of our forums. Doesn't really matter who. We will know at least 10 who are wonderful. Example, yesterday I met a startup called Saral X, created by two young men from IIT Delhi and IIT Jodhpur for people with visual disability. There are 36 million of them, but if you take that, you know what they're working on. How do you kind of translate, or how can they kind of understand the formulas? Because typically the assistive readers don't know how to read the formulas. And if they're in the technology space or the science spaces, so they're excluded from higher ed because of these kind of things. The same thing is true of people with hearing disability. So there are a number of them. The other one, which I think if they want to partner with us anywhere around the globe, there is funding, obviously, but there's also specific problems that we can work on. And there are, we are doing that. TIE is, for those of you who don't know, next year, if you come back, we will be holding the TIE Global Summit. And we hope to have a fair number of people across the globe and maybe help fund many more startups in every one of those sectors.
Absolutely, absolutely. And TIE is a global organization with a strong representation, particularly in Europe and Americas, and definitely down here in Asia. Now, we are not to keep too many people from lunch, so Vipul, any general advice for people who want to make money in private equity and innovation?
I would recommend anybody, if they're looking at India, they should look at it from supplying these products and services. There is a huge market with all the tech innovation that is happening. I think that integration is happening on the supply side, and there is enough for everybody. Any innovation that is happening, this stuff. But go for paying customers. The days of just having data and non-paying customers and market grab is over. I think it is very important to have paying customers, and there are plenty of them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to all the panelists for being here today and sharing your insights. And now we'll break I'll let her take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeet Vijay. Really many insights provided by a single panel, and therefore I would now like to request all our guests to help release the launch of the Secure Digital Infrastructure White Paper. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something that all our panelists as well as the moderator can help launch. The future of secure digital infrastructure. I'd also like to tell all of our guests that you will find the QR code in your conference bags in case you wish to scan that and take more details about this white paper. A very important piece of research as well as work scanning the entire landscape of cybersecurity. With a round of applause for all our panelists and the moderator. Thank you so much. I may now request Dr. Nalin Srivastava, scientist MIT, to please be ready to step on stage while I request Mr. Jeet Vijay to give tokens of gratitude to all our panelists. First to Ms. Sandhya Devanathan, Vice President of Meta India. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Ms. Sandhya Devanathan. Next, Mr. Lingaraju Saukar, President, Kyndryl India. Next to Mr. Harveer Singh, SVP, Tata Digital. Next to Ms. Sandhya Vasudevan, Director, TTK Group. Is Dr. Nalin Srivastava here? Next to Mr. Vipul Rungta, MD and CEO of HDFC Capital. And to do the honors for the moderator of the day, for Mr. Jeet Vijay, may I request Dr. Nalin Srivastava to offer a token of appreciation and gratitude for this panel that brought to us corporate innovations for new economy, embracing startup mindset and agility. Thank you to all our panelists. With that, it's a wrap of a wonderful session. I wish you a happy lunch and lots of conversations and food for thought. I've been told that we can reconvene here at 2:15 p.m. Some of you may be aware that the global startup pitching involving 29 countries and 150 plus startups, that's happening in the pitch halls of 1, 2, and 3. But the main hall session, that is the place where we all are here, will continue with a panel discussion which is on banking, innovation, and regulation. See you very soon. It's time for me, Vasanthi Hari Prakash, to wrap up this pre-lunch session. Thank you. Namaskara.